Hello and welcome back to the Macca's Talk Hockey podcast, the podcast where normally me and my brother talk about English ice hockey, but Charlie is in Mallorca, a 2 week holiday. So we've got my dad to step in. Not a bad little replacement for Charlie. And I'm sure he's not going to be as annoying. I'm joking. But yeah, we're back again for the Bees special, the Berkshire Bees, as their new name is. And I quite like the name. I think it suits it quite well. Obviously, we'll still know them as the Bracknell Bees. But yeah, we're going to do our third team special. I think this might come out third. I'm not sure. We haven't actually got an interview yet with a player, but whoever it is, I'm sure it'll be a good little interview. And if you are new, we're basically doing team specials, previewing ready for the 24-25 season. So you go through each team. We start off the little segment by looking back at last season. We then cut to the interview, and then in the second half, we'll look ahead to next season, who's left, who they've added to the roster, our expectations, and then finally all of our ones to watches as well. So we each get a pick for ones to watch. But let's look back at last season, and for the Bees' expectations, all of our expectations, we had them outside of the playoffs, but they proved most of the fans wrong, and they finished in that eighth playoff spot, which was a very, very successful season for them, Dan. Firstly, we went to a lot of the games, didn't we? When Swindon weren't playing on the Sunday, we took a trip down to Slough and watched them, but they were quite a fun team to watch, weren't they?
Yeah, near the end of the season, it was getting nearly every other weekend. I think we
Yeah.
were heading down to watch the Bees. Yeah, they were quite a fun team to watch last season, especially in them big games and stuff. They seemed to turn up in their own rink and put on a good show.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, they were good. I think they sort of, as they got into the season, they sort of got a bit better. I think.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had a really like a surprising start, surprisingly good start as
Yeah,
well.
it did, yeah.
But as they started getting a bit more comfortable, getting a few more players back from injury, getting the lines sorted out, yeah, they sort of got into their own a bit and started playing their own game.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's probably the reason why they got into that playoff spot at the end of the season.
Yeah, they just picked up points and the big boys turned up. And I think that was kind of Goodbye's game plan. He knew that maybe depth wise there's a lot of teams which are better than them, but their depth guys really stood out in the way that they just killed off they just killed off time and gave a rest to the top guys who produced, and the points they produced. We'll go into it in a minute, but it was ridiculous, especially the duo themselves. But yeah, I think it was very good, Dad. We had some memorable games watching the Bees. MK on penalty shots, that was a good one. Beating Hull as well, I think that was a really good one. And those are the type of games which, in their own rink, they just fancied themselves to beat those top teams.
Yeah, I think for me the one standout one was I think we all turned up to watch them play Hull, and that sort of embodied the team spirit I think of the Bees over that season. They just battled right through to the end, and at times you thought Hull had overcome them, and Hull were just going to put their foot down and off they go, but they didn't. The Bees fought back and just caused problems in their own rink. And it became a little bit of a fortress at times. But yeah, we had some good little trips down there. We helped the ticket sales down in
At least four tickets a week. What's that? 12 quid a ticket. We're talking 40, 50 quid every
but it was
time we
worth
go
it.
down.
I mean,
Plus petrol as well.
it was worth it, and I
Yeah,
think
it was. It was so worth it.
enjoy the little trip down to see the Bees. And at times when we went down to watch them, they held their own really well, which was really good.
Yeah. And shout out to the mascot as well. He gave us a Pepsi Max, and I've actually got a Pepsi Max. I haven't said that for a while, but I've got a Pepsi Max. He gave us a free Pepsi Max and a T-shirt as well, which I gave to Dan actually, and I
Yeah,
assume you
still
still
got
have it,
it.
Dan.
Of course, I've still got it.
Well, nice T-shirt. But yeah, let's
That's
talk
it.
about and then. Sorry, the Pepsi Max is making me a bit gassy on the burping.
Great.
So,
Bring back Charlie.
yeah, bring back Joe. Nah, Dan, Goodbye and Ballas.
Yeah.
They were the duo which we just loved watching. They were tearing teams apart. It's like they'd played together for 5, 10 years.
Yeah, 100%. There, I think. Yeah, I think definitely saw a different Ballas
Yeah,
when he's with Goodbye. It's like the missing puzzle to him. Yeah, they're both so clever. The IQ between them both is just unbelievable, and it's the main reason I'm sure we'll talk about and why Ross Bottom in that line works so well is because just put someone like him in between them, and you've literally got a perfect line right there. And I don't think anyone would look out of place on that line, to be honest, because of the IQ between them both.
Yeah, I think they just needed a grinder to be able to get them the puck, and then Gabai and Balazs did the work. Looking at the point stat, Gabai got that 100 points. He got 105, 61 assists, 44 goals. Balazs actually got 51 goals, 45 assists. He just missed out on the 100. He got 96 points. The next closest to them is Antonov with 44. A whole 50 plus points between them. It just showed how, not carried because the other players did their role, but they carried the points, didn't they?
Yeah. I mean, I remember that at the beginning of the season, we'd be watching Swindon at home, and we'd be keeping an eye on all the scores. And in between watching Swindon, we'd suddenly be looking and we're going, crikey, those two have scored 3-4 points in the game again. It's Balazs and Gabai again, and that was a regular conversation when we're watching, and that's how formidable that duo was. I mean, that was the talk of hockey at the start.
Yeah,
they were just formidable. And you're right, they have a little grinder in there who does all the hard graft, and then up pops Gabai and Balazs. 1-2 done.
Yeah.
And before you know it, their point score has gone up. So yeah, they were formidable. Really good duo.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it felt like they've just played together for years, but they've got that European style, don't they, Dan? And it just suited them perfectly. The other end of the ice, they had a new netminder last season. Brithen Priest obviously come down from the Elite League as a backup. And at the start of the season, I must say, he showed a lot of fans how good he was. And Charlie Adams is one to watch. Of course he did, because he predicts stuff, which is annoying. But he did do very well at the start of the season. I think he gassed out a bit at the end because, just like Jordan McLaughlin said, when you're playing 50 plus games, it takes a toll on you. And I think we just saw him gassed out a bit at the end. But he was very, very good for them. And he was actually a key reason, I think, to why they got playoffs as well.
Yeah, 100%. He was really solid. Some of the saves that he made did sort of keep bees in the game. Some games that we saw, and like you said as well, it's just depth really. Like obviously Brett Shepherd, he played some good games. I think he played most preseason games for them as well, and he looked really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think obviously Brithen Priest, we knew he was going to be running the tandem, and yeah, he just did gas out at the end of the season, but I think they got a lot of injuries in D as well, which obviously didn't help them. So a lot more shots in the game, and all of it adds up, So it's just energy and all the bit long travels and stuff like that. I think he was traveling quite far to the games as well, like home games. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, it's just another reason why having two, like 1A, 1B goalie tandem can be really helpful for a team.
Yeah, fair play to him, and it's actually fair play to the Bees, Dad, because as Dan said, they did have quite a few injuries. The main one for me being Harvey Stead, and we know how good Harvey Stead is. He only played 24 games in the season. He missed over 30 games, and that's one of their top defensemen. Now, they did bring in Ed Bradley, and I'm absolutely gassed that Swindon have signed him, and that will be a huge miss for them. And Bradley did get 25 points in 31 games, but the D-core, I think, was very strong last season. I did think it was very good for Bees and defending in their own rink. And I think shout out to Mog as well. I thought he was really, really good. He was manning their power play as well, picking up a few points. So their D-core kind of clicked, didn't it?
Yeah, it certainly did. I think you're right. It is the depth of the squad. You look at the teams that have got the bigger squads, you can alternate a little bit more and just give people a little bit of a breather. Going back to their netminder, it's hard graft week in, week out when you are going to get lots and lots of shots against you. But the D did extremely well. But it's depth of the squad to be able to take players out, give them a little bit of a breather. But when you're pushing, and again, when the Bees are pushing to keep in the match, you've got to put your top players out time and time again, and sometimes that has a detrimental effect further down in the season.
Yeah, I think playoffs, they gave it a good go in those 6 games. They didn't pick up a win, I don't think, but they did give it a real good go. And yeah, fair play for them to get in there. And I think, as we said, a lot of people predicted them not to make it, and they made it. And I think that in itself, being one of the bottom teams, and probably bottom budget as well, for them to make playoffs over some of the teams they did, that's a fair play to them, and goodbye for putting that team together. And I just wanted to shout out one last player who I think had a real breakout last season, Dan. Oliver Nags, 17 years old, playing on the top line in some games against the best players in the league, and he held his own for a first season, and he is definitely one to look out for, isn't he?
Yeah, 100%. I think every game I watched, I think I mentioned his name to one of you. He was just, I loved watching him every game. He just, every time I watched him, he seemed to grow.
Yeah.
And as the season went on, and looking at, I think we went to a few of the playoff games as well. And just seeing him grow, and just seeing how different he played from the start of the season to the end of the season, just in that little stint, is just so big. And I think obviously it's not good that they got the injuries in D, but I think for a personal level for him, I think it's a perfect scenario for him, because he was getting to be out in those big moments. He was a D man that they were relying on, to be honest, because he was probably the D man that played the most games out of that whole D core. And he's the youngest.
He played every game, by the way. He played every single game, 54 out of 54.
So that's what you mean. And he's going to get nothing but experience from that. And I'm sure he's going to grow into an unreal D-man.
Yeah. And they did have players. Go on, chat, Dad.
No, I was just going to say, you've got to shout out to their player coach as well. You know, top point scorer, and knowing the reliance on him, and actually managing the squad and achieving. And you're right, quite a few people hadn't got him in a playoff position, and to be able to do that as a player coach and balance all the injuries out and be instrumental in scoring the points, I think, you know, you've got to give a shout out to the coach, goodbye.
I think it was a very good decision, putting goodbye as the coach. I know people give stick to some player coaches, but he did a real good job last season to get him into the playoffs. You have to say, Solway, Sheffield, some of those teams who maybe people would have predicted them to finish in playoffs, and Bees managed to do it right up to the last game week. So fair play to them. We'll cut to the interview now, and then after the interview, we'll look at quite a lot of changes they've made, players coming in, players leaving, ready for next season. Welcome back. We've got another guest on the podcast. Charlie's not here again for the second time, so it's just going to be me running it. But Liam, thanks for joining us again for the Bees special.
Thanks for having me again. Pleasure to be back.
How's the off-season gone? I know it's been a very long season, but have you managed to get back on the ice?
Yeah, we were back next week, and we're back on the ice tomorrow. So we have our little it's like our little camp that we have with the Cardiff Canucks.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've had a few guys out for tryouts the last week. Had them out tomorrow, and then I think we're doing like a few cuts, if you will, and then we're going to have a little more refined group for the next 2 weeks, and then we'll go into the season, or into preseason, and then into the season. So hopefully we'll get a couple of guys out of that.
Yeah. Obviously, last season, I spoke to you before. Well, it was like a couple of weeks, I think, into the season. Did I know you a couple of weeks into the season?
Yeah, I think we were maybe like 4 to 6 games in, maybe.
Yeah, so it was very early on. But you said, I remember you said at the end, people watch out. We don't mind going under the radar, kind of thing. And last season was, I think, for the Bees, it was a very successful season in a way that you were one of the top lower teams, and I think we all know that Bees has one of the lowest budgets, if not the lowest budget. And I think you guys did well last season.
Yeah, you guys were rooting for us too, but which is always it's always appreciated, right? I mean, it's. I think you hit the nail on the head that it was a positive for the Bees as a whole. You know, I think steps were definitely taken in the right direction, but as a player, like we finished 8th. You know, we lost a lot. We had that rough spell in November. There's as a player, for me, nothing to write home about. It was a very frustrating year. We had a lot of issues with injuries, suspensions. You know.
Oh yeah, you did, yeah.
Take Harvey Stead, for example. That we could have a whole episode on just that alone. So I think positive steps were made in the right direction, and I think the Bees as a club have the right mindset, and we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah. What do you think? Because obviously was it Goodbye's first full season as being that player coach? What kind of stuff did he implement last season which really improved the team from the season before to this season, and obviously getting that playoff spot?
Well, I think there's kind of two schools of thought, really. The first one is Dom took over from Doug in his first kind of interim period. He's working with a pool of players that he hasn't brought in, right? That's players that Doug had brought in.
Yeah.
And while Doug is still heavily involved as director of the team, Dom now has that kind of free reign to build a team around him that he wants to have, right?
Yeah.
And I think the second thing is irrespective of what Doug is as a coach and what he is as a person and everything like that, you look at teams that struggle. Sometimes just bringing in a fresh face helps.
Yeah.
A fresh set of eyes, a fresh set of ideas. And I think that is probably what the Bees needed too.
Yeah.
I never played for Shep, so I can't comment on how it is to play for him because I never have, right?
Yeah.
But I know in the premise of hockey, you look at the NHL and even other sports, sometimes just bringing in a fresh face can help kind of revive a team a bit.
Mm-hmm. I think it's interesting what you say about him being able to kind of build his own team. And obviously you played with Balaz, and he was the talk of last season linking up with Goodbye for the Bees. Did you, be honest, did you expect him to pop off as much as he did with the Bees? Because it felt like he'd play with Goodbye for 10 plus years. They just linked up perfectly.
They played together briefly in France, eh?
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah, I think they played for Brest.
Okay, yeah.
The France 2 league, I believe.
Yeah.
I think it was very brief because I think they played on that team and then Dom left and joined the Bees.
Yeah, okay,
yeah. So that connection was already there. I remember, I can't remember speaking to, but someone, like when Basingstoke signed Balaz, everyone was like, what the hell is Ash Tate doing? Right? And then obviously the year in Basingstoke kind of proved that Ash Tate knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I've always rated Bally. I've been on, I was on a podcast with 4,000 and counting, and I was talking about how good Bally is.
Yeah.
And I think I spoke to you guys and I said that, maybe, you look at Gale, for example, because they were the imports in Basingstoke, right? And I think I said briefly that Gale had that more flair about him, but Bally is just as good. You just don't notice it, right?
Yeah.
I think that season just proved it. Basically, we had personnel issues. We were short benched, and Bally was doing a lot on his own.
Yeah.
He's shown this year, put him with someone that can play, and look what he does. And I think it speaks for itself.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because obviously they're both from the same country as well. Do you think it's just that European kind of mindset that they just linked up so well? Like, it's not even necessarily just the point scoring. They just seem like they knew how to play together on that top line.
I think that's regardless of who they are, where they're from. I think that's just because they're both very good at hockey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think it's just don't overthink it. It's as simple as that. They're both sick of hockey. Like, they're both very good hockey players. Bally, because, take Edgar's Landsberg, for example. I think he had 17 goals in Basingstoke. And he was playing with Bally. And then, it unfortunately didn't work out in the Bees, right? So it's like, you could say, did Eggers get 17 goals because he played with Bally? Or, you know what I mean? Like,
it's one of them, like,
Bally's the kind of guy that if you put him with anyone, he complements them.
Yeah.
So when you put him with someone that complements him for a change,
yeah,
you really see what his worth is as a player and what he really can do.
I think one of the things we notice, which isn't even to do with point scoring, is just the ball battles. He's got a different stick, doesn't he, on the end of his stick, and he can just push the puck out of the board, and then he comes out with it 90% of the time. And it's stuff like that which some fans might not even notice about him.
Yeah. And his passing. I think he's an unbelievable passer.
Yeah.
Like, he can thread needles. Like, passes I wouldn't even know were there.
Yeah.
And he's making them, like, no look behind the back and stuff.
Yeah. And obviously looking at last season, I think we went to quite a few of the Bees home games, and you tripped a lot of teams up, and like MK comes to mind, Hull comes to mind. We had a couple tough games against you lot. What is it about that rink, do you reckon, which you guys have played on, where you're able to try and play teams at your own game and they kind of just struggle a bit? Do you know what I mean?
The small neutral zone really messes up teams.
Yeah.
Because I've been on that side of it where I've come in and it's like, it takes you a period to adjust. And I think this is our problem is we've got to learn to be good in our own rink.
Yeah.
Because we almost get like a 1 period head start on teams, right? Especially teams like Solway, Hull, where they've driven down a distant leads as well. I I think we have to learn to be good in our own rink. I think it's the neutral zone being so small that messes teams up.
It's so small, isn't it,
Because
from
obviously
line to line?
you learn to play a system, and you play in a rink like MK, and you've got this massive rink. And MK is a good example because a lot of their play is kind of they'll send their wingers up, they'll break out, they'll put the puck back, and they'll hit it to the middle to let their wingers come up with speed, and they get that speed because of the size of the rink. You don't get that in Slough.
No, you can't. You can't build it up, can you?
Another team that does that really well is Peterborough. That is, they'll break the puck out, hit it to the middle, and they'll have their forwards attack with speed or their D-man attack with speed and gain the zone. Again, when you've got a tiny neutral zone, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah.
And then that neutral zone makes it easier as a defenseman because you can almost be more aggressive because the neutral zone is so small. You're pretty much up there anyways. It's one extra stride to be back in position.
Yeah.
As opposed to a ring like Sheffield or MK where, you can be 4 or 5 strides out of position if you're not looking where you're going.
Yeah. It's interesting because do you think going into next season, do you think teams will slowly work that out, or do you think you'll always have that kind of advantage over them? Obviously, you played there the last couple seasons, and then you've played there as an opposition as well.
It's obviously, as a player, you get used to playing in rinks, right?
Yeah.
Like Swindon, I've played against now since I joined the league, right? I feel comfortable going to Swindon. You walk in and team, right? But it's still not your own rink.
Yeah.
I think that is the home ice advantage really is present.
Yeah.
And then obviously, it's not that present because if that was the case, we'd have won every game at home and everyone would be 100% at home and X amount away, right?
But I think that was a big part of last season and being able to make that home a fortress. And I think,
I agree.
Looking at obviously you guys getting the playoff spot in a crucial game against Hull, I remember that one. You guys needed to win, and you won. The top guys stepped up, and the rest of the team did the role that they needed to. And I think you talked about that. About you're not necessarily one of the top guys who, like Ballas and Gabay, who's going to be those point scorers, but you know your role, which is so important to let them do their role. And I think that really worked at home as well.
Yeah. I'm a bit offended that you don't think I'm as good as Gabay.
I'm sorry, I'm only being honest.
Yeah, of course, I'm only joking though. Before I start getting attacked on Twitter, but I think that was part of the issue too, is because we obviously had injuries, we had suspensions, and we had guys who could put the puck in the net. But where I think we struggled was having those role players, those energy players, and those depth players that can do a job. And I think because there was a lot of times where we would go ahead in games or play against teams and we'd be right where with them till the last 10, 15 minutes of the game, and that's when things would start to slip for us. And I think that was having those guys that know how to shut a game down.
Yeah, because as you said, losing Harvey, and I know he's left now back to Streatham, but losing him for a whole season, you had who I think stepped up so well, and I do want to ask about him, Ollie Nags, playing his first full season in the National League at 17 years old. Players like him proper stepping up, and fair play to him.
Yeah, Nags is a good kid. Got a lot to learn, but he's young.
He's 17?
Yeah, I think he's 18 now.
He's just turned 18. Yeah,
I think he turned 18 during the year.
Yeah.
I mean, we were pestering him to put a visor on all year. I think it's a case of it's a perfect storm, right? Because you're a kid, right? He wasn't playing a whole lot at the start of the year, and then the injuries happened and the suspensions happened, and it was a case of, and it's good, and people need to realize this. This is why young guys should go to teams like the Bees. Not because I'm not saying the Bees aren't good. I play for them, right? But you get those playing opportunities where you're putting a game, because just practicing at this level isn't going to do you any good. You need game time. The same goes for the Elite League.
Yeah.
And he got that because of the situation, right? So as much as it sucked losing Harvey all year, we're going to get a very good Ollie Nags this year because of the amount of experience he got, right? And so,
because Dom's given him the trust and has played him at that young age where he's going to make mistakes sometimes. He trusts Dom now and is like, no, I'm going to be loyal to you, to stick with you guys. And he's signed on for another couple seasons.
Absolutely. But I think the other thing is I don't think Dom had much of a choice in some respect either.
Well,
right?
Yeah.
That sort of, and that's my point is it was one of those, he's here. We have he needs to play because we don't have enough players, sink or swim.
Yeah.
and he very much swimmed.
Yeah, and I think towards the back end of the season, you really saw him getting a bit more comfortable. And Dan mentioned he started bringing the puck out a bit more. He started when he got the puck, he didn't just panic. Maybe what like he did at the start of the season, he was a lot more comfortable with the puck and would skate it out. And I think also him getting used to that bees rink as well. You could really see him kind of being a bit more confident with his play.
Yeah, I think as well, it's like he's got to learn what kind of role he wants to play as well, right? Like he doesn't. With him in particular, I think he doesn't need to showcase himself, right? Like, so play the system, kind of things like that. Those are things you need to teach those like players when they're young, right? And he listens. He's good. He's a good kid, and he's gonna be unreal. Like he'll go to the elite league.
You reckon? It's as someone similar who's been given that opportunity because of injuries. We spoke to Mackenzie, who's Ryan Lease, similar age, got given quite a few. They might be different kind of for Telford, yeah. So similar age, they've been given quite some opportunity from the coaches because of injuries, and I think they've both progressed from the start to the end of the season. And I think, as you said, I think Bees is quite a good little team for getting some of those younger guys coming in.
Yeah, no, I agree. And let's take the competition side out of it. It's only good for the sport, right? In this country,
exactly, and our league, yeah.
Yeah, like it's only going to benefit everyone that wants sport to do well, like or wants hockey to do well in this country. Because let's be serious, we struggle.
Yeah, it is, and I wanted to go on to that because as much as the league struggles, there's a lot of positives with the league, and I think the league is going in a good direction, and it's been much stable than it has a couple of years ago back in the NHL 1. You remember those where some games you're winning 10-0 and 12-1 and stuff like that. But there was one incident in playoffs, and I'm not even talking about Peterborough's goal. I remember when it came out, and I messaged you or something about that, and it was an offside goal for Peterborough, and that was quite a big one in the playoffs. So I know you're quite frustrated with that. And that leads on to...
against us.
Yeah, against you guys. Yeah, so it's 0-0. You'd held on for the whole first period, I think. It went into the second, and this was...
We held them for about 30 minutes in their own rink in the do-or-die game.
It was offside. I said it was offside twice, actually. It was offside twice, and it got allowed. Do you think that's where coaches should be able to have a little challenge?
Let's be serious, right? Like, is it going to help? Yes, of course, right?
Yeah.
Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Do we have the funding and the infrastructure to implement that? Probably not. Right.
Not for every team. I think some teams could be able to do it, but others, I don't know if they would be able to get the whole system in place to.
So then we would have to talk. Then we would have to talk about a collective bargaining agreement where every team, and people pool money together, and then you're getting into a whole other thing. And let's be serious, right? It's semi-professional hockey at the end of the day. There's not enough money in it. No matter what people think players are on. Like I work 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Right. And I tell people in the office as well, they go, "Oh, you play semi-professional ice hockey. What's that like?" I say, "Mate, if I was making that much money, I wouldn't be sat in the office with you." Right?
Yeah.
So let's be serious. There's not going to be enough money to do it. Would it help? Absolutely. Is there something where you can maybe meet in between? Possibly.
Yeah.
But then you've got to start thinking, okay, you review a goal, but we don't have the technology to review it instantly. Someone's got to go get a video. Next thing you know, you're waiting.
Well, you've got to have a volunteer in the box to then find that footage for the refs to see.
And I think it was Watty that touched on it. On his podcast one time where your volunteers are fans at the end of the day. Are they going to go and conclusively, you know what I mean? Like, and I chirp, ironically, we always got screwed by our own goal judges in Basingstoke. But, I remember in MK where I made a joke with Tim Pickett because MK scored a goal after the whistle and they put the light on, right?
Yeah.
And then I laughed because everyone was cheering because the goal light went on. Everyone's going, the goal light went on, goal light went on. And Pickett was like, well, that's why I don't listen to the goal judge because they're a fan, right?
Yeah.
And then we went the other way and we scored after the whistle and they didn't put the light on. And I was like, I said to Tim, I was like, it's ironic that, the light was on at one end and it didn't go on this end, even so it's, if we were going to run things professionally and all like that, there would have to be a massive influx of cash and we would have to restructure everything and it's just not doable.
Yeah.
Ironically enough, right, the refs are human. The linesman made a mistake. I know him, and I've seen him in Coventry.
Yeah.
And the first thing I said to him was, do you believe me? It was offside now, right? And then we had a laugh about it, right? And we had a beer together, and so is it frustrating at the time? Absolutely, I was furious, right? Because we'd gone into Peterborough and held them for half a game, and they scored an offside goal, and it did change the momentum.
Switched the game, yeah.
And I will die on that hill that we were winning that game if that never happened, because we were all over them. And I will argue that to the grave. But hey, it's done, right? It's a new season. So...
And obviously it happened to Peterborough at Coventry. Did you think it initially? I don't know what end you were at. Were you at the end the goal went in?
Which one? The semi-final or the final? Because it was both.
Yeah, the semi-final.
So the semi-final from my end.
I got the video. Somehow I was the one who got the video, and I posted it online straight away because I just don't think it is fair. And like Peterborough could have still gone on to win that game. And
I think they would have. And I also think that I don't think Telford would have beat Leeds.
Yeah, possibly.
I think it was it would have made an interesting weekend, that's for sure.
It would have.
It made for an interesting weekend, right? We all love a bit of drama in the playoffs.
And we were talking about it all evening, weren't we? So
yeah, I was stood when that goal happened. I was on Peterborough's side. I was stood. If you were looking at Jordan Martin goal, if you were looking at the Zamboni end, I was just to the right. I was actually right along the goal line. From my angle, I seen the puck hit the post, hit the other post, and come right back out.
Yeah, and that's what happened.
How else would it have done it?
Yeah.
I seen the light going, and it was kind of one of them things where only Peterborough was celebrating, but everyone else was kind of like, did that just go in the net?
Yeah.
I remember our end, everyone was like kind of, going, what the heck? It's like, was that a goal?
Yeah.
And then I seen the video and I was like, oh.
Yeah.
But then in the final as well, I remember their goal, like Leeds' first goal. I don't think that crossed.
No, it didn't.
I seen Marzi scramble for it and skip it. And
I don't think that did either. And that's where I know you talk about the budget, and we've mentioned it so many times. People are probably bored of listening to us say it, but they can do it in the cup games. Surely they can do it in the cup games, especially at a mutual venue such as Coventry.
I agree with that, but I think it's like one of them things where if you do it there, why aren't you doing it
in your playoff game at Peterborough?
Yeah, and again, it's tricky because I think it could work in Coventry. Is the short answer. I think it could work because, you said, you've got Steve, Mary, and Danny Berkshire, I think his last name is. They're from the Bees, and they work. I think you have your announcer from Swindon. He does the announcing.
Lee did the announcing. Yeah.
So it is very much like a collaborative project, Coventry weekend, right?
Yeah.
And I think if you had the right people with the right mindset and the right ideas, you could definitely put together a very professional weekend. Don't get me wrong, though. I'm not criticizing Coventry weekend. They put together
very good. Yeah.
Yeah. So, is it a criticism? Not a chance. It's just more feedback, I guess. They could do it. I think they could, maybe tweak some things about Coventry, but for the most part, I agree with you.
Yeah. Looking next season then, because it is a B special. It's been quite a lot of changes with the team. There's been quite a lot of players obviously going to Streatham, but I did want to touch on that two-way with Streatham, or the club kind of link up. I don't know what they call it. But you have got it with Streatham, and you've got one in the NHL 2 as well, I believe.
Yeah,
Cardiff.
The Cardiff Canucks, I believe. Yeah, and that's with his last name's Hendricks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's called like a player pathway program.
Player pathway, yeah.
Yeah, it's not like that. I mean, again, it's only going to benefit the sport as a whole, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk much on this, but I am very frustrated with the situation between Slough and the Bees. I think that it benefits no one with the way that's going. I think that we should have a straight system from Slough. We've
joked about this on the podcast.
Yeah, I'm not going to say any more on the matter.
That's all right. That's all right.
Yeah, but so, luckily we've got Streatham willing to work with us, and we've got, Cardiff willing to work with us, and it's only going to benefit. Like I said, even if, this little tryout session we're doing this, even if we get one player from it, right, it's benefited us. Right?
You've got a few players who've got some decent. You've got Preston. You've got
He's good, by the way. I didn't realize how good he actually is.
Have you trained with him? Have you?
Last week, so I seen him in Coventry.
Yeah,
I don't think Streatham played that well that weekend.
Yeah,
to get to actually judge how they are as a team, because I know they can play a lot better.
Yeah,
and obviously it was a cup game. Preston wasn't playing much. It was a very controlled situation. When you see him out on the ice, just in a practice and a scrimmage, like he's freaking good, man.
Yeah,
I was like, holy shit, who is this?
For a young lad as well, 2006. That makes me feel old, but he's 5 years younger.
I remember going to Moggy on the bench because we were sat there, sucking wind, because he's first practice back in his own. I'm like, Moggy, who is this kid? He's like, man, that's Preston. I'm like, oh, that was a good signing. You know what I mean? I'm going to text Paints and say, hey, can we have him all year, please?
And it's one of them, obviously a lot of people we've spoke about the Sheffield system. I actually think there's nothing wrong with the Sheffield some of these Sheffield players training and getting used to it. And I think Sheffield is a good team to be able to do that with. And I think that's similar to the Bees with their pathway, but just from the other end of it. And
yeah, I agree.
I'm interested to see how some of these Stretton boys do it, because they're certainly going to be fighting for their spot in the National League. This is their chance to prove it.
Exactly, yeah. And then you've got it the other way. You've got the Cardiff kids who are now, they've got that opportunity to use this program with the Bees to move up into the NHL 1 in freedom. And let's be serious, if you're playing in the NHL 1, who wouldn't want to play for Streatham?
Yeah. Like they are the team in the NHL 1 to beat, aren't they? So
you know what I mean? It's like saying who wouldn't want to play for Leeds in our league, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think it is very interesting, and I think we've done the Bees recording actually the team, and we've talked about how it's not just going to be about this season. It's a process for the next couple seasons, and I think that's what these kind of links with the teams and the pathways is about. And I think it will be really positive for the Bees going forward.
Absolutely. Obviously, I'm not the coach, so when I say something on this, it's very much just my opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of the Bees, but it feels very much at the minute that. So my personal opinion on the matter was last season was we had a lot of guys who had played for the Bees before or played elsewhere in the league and were just used to losing and getting like slapped, losing 5-1, 6-1, right, on a nightly basis. I think a few guys got complacent with the idea that at least we're competing in games now.
Yeah.
Where I was very much of like, we've just lost 2-1. Like, how did we let one go? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think Graham Bauer's very good at what he does. He's a great director of the team. He's good at what he does. There's a reason why I've re-signed, and that is a major part of it.
Yeah.
I think he's kind of said, get rid of anyone who's not buying in.
Yeah.
Who is complacent with losing, and we will completely rebuild the team from scratch if we have to. And you're seeing a lot of young guys coming in because they, like you said, they're hungry, they're eager, they want to prove themselves. And are we going to come into the league this year and light it up? Probably not, right? Are we going to come in and compete? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we've got guys who want to.
Yeah.
Right? And it's going to be the same situation as last year. I was very optimistic last year, and unfortunately we didn't do as well as I'd hoped. I'm still optimistic about this year. I still think we're going to prove a point to people because we are putting a team together that wants to. And I think that will go further than the team we had last year.
And you've got more depth. I think depth is quite key because you said you had that blip last season because of how many injuries. You should have quite a few players who are going to bust their ass off in that time. If you do get a couple of injuries, you've got players to cover now, which I think is quite key. And I don't know, obviously you're not the coach, you don't know, but with the Streatham links as well, if you do need someone like Baird or Harvey, they could come and play a game. I don't know. It's interesting that you have.
I mean, let's be serious, right? Like, whether or not we're the coach, they could. They very much could.
There's nothing to say they can't.
Are they maybe going to play on a weekend in Solway? Probably not, right? But if it's a Sunday night in Slough and we need a couple of guys, I'm sure they'd say, why not, right? Yeah. Because I would imagine that any player that's left hasn't left with, any burnt bridges.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not Graham, I'm not Doug, I'm not Dom. I don't have those conversations.
Yeah.
Not in my pay grade.
Yourself then, obviously going into next season, you have lost a few defensemen. I know you've got a couple coming in from Streatham, but you can play D as well. We've seen you play D. Do you reckon you'll be... Oh, my gaming chair's proper messed up here. Do you reckon you'll be playing D a bit this season? You're comfortable playing wherever?
I think it's heading that direction based on our signings.
Yeah.
But like one can speculate, right? Like, I remember because Gary Mitchell, our equipment manager, he lives just over the road from me.
Yeah.
So we see each other all the time.
Stoke.
Yeah, like we talk all the time, and he called me there and he goes, mate, I'm looking at the roster. I think you're going to be a D-man this year. And I'm just kind of rolling my eyes going, oh boy, yeah, okay, here we go. But like I said, like if I'm going to play, I'm happy, right? I'm getting older now.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy my last few years of hockey. I don't want to do it sat on the bench, right?
Yeah. And
so if I'm playing, I'm happy.
And how do you feel as one of the senior guys now in that team with a lot of the younger guys coming in? Are you almost taking up that senior role as well?
Yeah, I guess I am getting pretty old, eh?
I didn't want to say it, but no, I'm joking.
Yeah, no, I'm self-aware. It's okay. Yeah, I guess. Well, what is it now? I joined the league back in 2018, I think.
Yeah, after that year in Canada, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, where I had like that kind of year out. So yeah, I think it was like 2018-19 season. So what was that, 6 years now?
Yeah.
I would say that would start to get on for veteran status.
Yeah.
It's a shame. It's a shame it's not still in Basingstoke. I'd be close to a testimonial now.
Oh, well, we'll quickly touch on Basingstoke. They had the news a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't too much to go by, but they're going to try.
Hasn't been much to go by.
No, but obviously you live in Basingstoke. You've still been close to the rink. Do you still do stuff at the rink, or is it literally you cannot do anything now?
Very briefly. I was actually talking to the manager today about some stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's almost like Stockholm syndrome. No matter how hard I try to leave, it always brings me back somehow. Because it's like someone's left or someone's sick. Can you come cover? It's like, okay, yeah, I guess do the extra, the extra 50 quid or whatever. Do you know what, mate? We'll believe it when we see it, right? When you're watching playing for Basingstoke again, if that ever happens, right? Like, we'll believe it when we see it.
It's one of the
talk is cheap.
It is, yeah. Until they have actually got a plan in place.
And I don't know if I don't know if people outside of Basingstoke realize how much political sway the ice rink has in Basingstoke.
Yeah.
Like it sways local elections.
Does it?
Yeah, like I think Labour very much won the election based on other reasons as well.
Yeah,
but the rink is very much part of. They got a large proportion of the sports people in Basingstoke because of like the rink.
What Bison had? What 900 over 1,000 fans coming through the door?
Yeah, well, I think it was on average
about 800-900.
Probably a little bit less.
You reckon?
Yeah. But when the rink, I've never played in the rink when it was fully operational. So, I wonder if that used to be about 50.
That was busy. That was when we just started going.
And there's probably people that don't go anymore because of the state of the rink, right? So they could, like you said, there could have been about 2,000 people that went and posted their vote for Labour just because of the rink.
That's nuts, that.
And the way people vote, that's a separate conversation. This isn't a political podcast. We're not getting into that.
Yeah. We're just having a chat. But yeah, next season as well, obviously you've got some of those the main point scorers back as well. You've got Gabayo, Balaz, Antonov as well. He stayed. He doesn't look like he's ever going to leave as well. So you've still got the point scoring. What's like the targets for you guys? I know you set your expectations quite high, but what are you expecting going into this season?
I think we averaged about 4 goals against last season per game.
Yeah.
It's not good enough. Because that means you have to score 5 goals every night to put yourself in a chance to win.
Yeah.
Are we going to put 5 past Gospel? Probably not. Are we going to put 5 past Headley? Probably not, right? They're very good goalies, right? Yeah. So to beat the best, we got to work on our defensive game.
Yeah.
I think our biggest issue is we were too soft.
Yeah.
And the reason I'll say that out loud is because I've said it. I've said it to Dom. I've said it to Doug. I've very much expressed my opinion. I think bringing Ash Tate in is going to help with that because when we played in Basingstoke, our rule in our rink was very much is you come in our rink, you're playing by our rules, and those rules are prison rules, right? And if you want to come, in our house, you're going to pay the price for it. I think that will help mitigate goals against.
Yeah.
Because being tough in your own rank, having that intimidation factor. You look at Romford. Romford are always tough in their own rank.
Yeah,
they
and with their fans make it horrible as well.
Yeah, for not only the players but for the away fans as well.
Yeah.
So, I think we have to be tougher, and I think that's going to help our defensive game. I think that was our biggest issue is just team toughness, being tough in our own rank and not taking crap from people and standing up for each other. And
I think one of the guys you brought in, Mitchell, he's quite a tough guy, isn't he? He won't really take any crap. You've played with him opposite Basingstoke.
He's one I actually was pretty much begging them to sign him last season.
Really?
Yeah, I was like, sign Marcus Mitchell. Like, we need someone who's going to step up and help bring toughness to the team.
Yeah.
I think it was around the time where like James Smith from Telford absolutely blew my face up, right? Like, and I was like, I think we need someone who's a bit tougher than me.
And he's only what 5'6". He's a tough boy. He is.
He's quite big.
Yeah, he is.
He's a little bit taller than me, and I'm 5'9", and he's bigger than me. Like,
Yeah.
he's a few kilos on me.
Ash Tate then, what is it? I know you touched on it there. What else do you think he's going to bring? Because do you think whoever put the shirt back on again?
Oh yeah, not a chance.
This.
Yeah, no, he ain't playing again. He ain't. I don't think he's playing again. I think he misses it, which is why he wanted to get involved again.
Yeah.
But I think he was very much at the time as he still wants to be involved. But I think you're 45 years old. You're starting to get on a bit.
Once you've been in hockey your whole life and you're that driven like him, it's hard to get away. And I think he's going to have a big role this season, as you said. And I think nurturing some of these younger lads as well with experience is going to be quite helpful.
Yeah, and like I said, obviously we're only speaking based on our opinions, but
yeah,
us signing Ash Tate has nothing to do with Dom as a coach,
no.
Right? I've never been a player coach, so I can't speak how it is to be a player coach because I don't know.
Yeah.
What I do know is it's a very hard job. Like you think about it, you've got to run a team and play your game.
Yeah.
And I think Dom can do more as a player, but he had to focus on stuff. I think bringing Ash in to help take that focus away from him and he can worry about it will allow Dom to focus more on playing hockey, which will allow us to play better as a team.
And the fact you're saying that and he still managed to put up over 100 points, that's quite scary that he can go up a level as well.
Dom's gross. Like he's unreal. Like you should see him in practice. Like we do little 3-on-3 battles or 1-on-1s and we'll do a drill where like D-man will break a forward out and he'll gap up and then take the D-man or the forward come down the other side, right? And we're all looking at the other end and we can see Dom at the front of the line and we're all like pushing each other to be the D-man that takes him on. Yeah, because I'm like, I'm taking Dom on. Like, no, what I mean? Because he just comes in and embarrasses us.
His release is wicked as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and he'll flick the puck up, bat it through your legs, and then catch it like it never left the ice on the other side. I'm like, how did you do that? And I'm looking behind him as he's gone away to score. I'm too busy admiring what he's just done and as he's skating away.
He is nuts, and he's one of the top guys in the league. And at the other end of the ice, though, I do want to ask. I think obviously Priest did a good job. I think he was quite solid for his first season in the NHL, especially right at the start. He really, really showed that he's a top goalie, and I wish him the best at. I think it's Fife. He's gone, is it? At Fife or Dundee? Yeah. Is it Fife? Yeah, Fife.
Fife, yeah. His fiance's from Dundee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I think that very much helped that decision. Yeah. Great guy. He was quiet, but he was a great guy. I've got nothing bad to say about him.
Yeah, I think he was right, and I think he's earned his spot back in the elite as the backup, and hopefully he gets a few games off Shane Owen. But you have brought in, and a couple teams have utilised it. Is Max Wright? Obviously you probably don't know too much about him, but a couple teams are going with the import goalie, and I actually think we had the opinion that I think teams like Bees and stuff have to get this import netty in to be able to, as you said, get that defensive stability in to compete with some of those top guys.
I can see both sides of the coin. I understand people's frustration with the idea that we should have British goalies, but at the end of the day, as well, is it's a business. At the end of the day, we're not here to win games, and it's very much a results based business. We don't win games, people don't buy tickets, we don't get money coming in, people don't come because we don't have money to spend, right?
Yeah.
I've heard a little bit about him, just from where he's played and people I know that have played there. Because I think he played CIS, didn't he, or NCAA?
He played. Let me have a look. It might have been NCAA or U Sports, one of the two. He played. He played 4 years of U Sports actually.
Yeah, so
Lakehead unit. A lot of the U Sports lads come over to our league.
Yeah, so take Gale for example, take Kobe for example. Yeah. There was a couple guys.
The was Swindon signing. He's from U Sports. McMullen's from U Sports.
Yeah, I was thinking of Leeds. I was just trying to think who it was there. Yeah, so if they're bringing in those kind of caliber players, then what do you think the goalies are going to be like, right?
Yeah, it is.
So it's gonna be good because that's the thing, right? Like I'm not bad mouthing any other goalie, but I know we talk about like Jordan Headley a lot and Sam Gospel a lot, right? And like that's the bar essentially, right? and if you've got British goalies not meeting that bar, we're going to have to go somewhere else. It's as simple as that. And let's be serious too. Competition help drives the sport forward because that's what drives people to improve, right? And it's tough because you don't want to sacrifice British kids earning a spot, but at the end of the day, if they're not good enough to fill that spot, then they've got to improve and get to that level because, we'd much rather as a team sign an import player.
Yeah.
Right? Because then you've got that, you sign an import D man, for example, an import D. Look at what's his name from Hull?
Brock.
Yeah, like he was a great offensive defenseman, right?
Yeah.
So not only did you get a guy that could defend, he could also chip in offensively, right?
Yeah.
Your goalie can't really do that, right? He's just there to stop pucks.
To stop the puck, yeah.
Yeah. So you've got to figure out will he stop X amount more pucks that you would lose offense from a defenseman, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So I guess time will only tell, right?
I think it's one of them, and this is just my opinion. I think he's gonna. I know you talked about the 4 goals per game average. I think if that gets lowered to 2 or 3 on some nights, it then means your forwards don't have as much pressure to go and have to score 5 or 6 goals. So you're going to be able to win, well, you can try and win 4-2 or 3-2 because the goalie's giving you a better chance to win, if you get what I mean.
Yeah, no, I think you're saying it from a fan perspective, but you're right. So from a perspective, it's more of a, when you're chasing a game, you take more risk, right? Because you have to, because you're chasing a game, right? And sometimes that doesn't pay off and you can see the goal. That's why you'll see teams lose 4-2, and a goal's come in the last 10 minutes because, they're throwing everything at them. It's broken down, they've gone the other way and they've got a lucky bounce, right? If that's 2-3 goals a game and we're able to score 2-3 goals a game, that's a completely different story, right? Because then we're in a game. You look back to the goal against Peterborough late in the game, halfway through the game. Like I said, I maintained that we would have won that game, but because of that, the momentum switched.
Yeah,
right?
That's a good point. I think
hockey is a very momentous sport in that respect. So
it's all good having the stats, but I guess when you actually break it down in some games, empty net goals taken, for example, like that's just an open goal because you're going for, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it still counts as 1 goal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost 4-2, but it was an empty net, right? Like, sometimes it'll go, it was they lost 4-2 or they lost 3-2 and they got an empty net right at the end, so it was 4-2. You know what I mean? But no one, always final score 4-2. 5-2.
But it is interesting because I remember, I don't think you played in the EPL. No, you didn't play in the EPL. But no one batted an eyelid at those import. Well, there might have been a couple people, but it was normal to possibly have an import goalie in. And you had Orzins, you had Hedolowski for Bison. I know Bison managed to win the playoffs and the league as well with him in there. And that was a big reason for it. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they do this season.
That was back when it was 5 imports, right?
Yeah. But again,
I think the best case scenario would be go 4 imports with an import goalie if you want to.
You reckon?
Yeah, I think it would be the best way to kind of meet in the middle. Because let's be serious, like if you bring Basingstoke back next year, like teams have struggled to bring in players this year.
Yeah, but like Bees, to be honest, Bees probably won't get as much.
Exactly, right? So if Basingstoke come back, what's that going to do with Bristol, Swindon, Bees, right?
Yeah.
So you have that extra ability to bring in. But here's the other thing, and it's a completely separate issue, is I've seen some of the credentials that require to be an import in our league, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a whole separate other issue and a whole other episode of, you know what I mean? But like because the players that they are qualifying for a visa to come in, half the leagues, if you're playing in that league, you're not coming to the NHL.
Yeah.
But I think that ties into having people that know what they're doing, like shout out to Jamie Mack at Sheffield. Like that's going to benefit Sheffield hockey as a whole massively. Like that's a guy who's got the right idea, right frame of mind, and is going to do well with it. I think that's what we need to do to kind of develop the sport and get it back to that level.
And our league as well, to try and get it back to, I guess, the EPIHL days. But I think it will be quite different to then as well, because I think the level of hockey just naturally has gone up as well. Yeah, right. Next season, have you got a ones to watch from the Bees, which fans should look out for?
Do you know what? I think Will Stead's going to surprise a lot of people this year.
I reckon?
Yeah.
We love Will.
He was heating up at the end of the season. And he'd done
he was.
Yeah, mate, he was picking up towards it. Like he was going into the playoff ready to go. and he lost that because of his injury. I think
I was gutted for him, man.
Yeah, mate, I was gutted as well because I was like, well, there goes one of our top scorers at the minute.
I
He's
know, yeah.
one of our top scorers. He was unreal here, and then he blows his shoulder out, and it was like, oh, it was a nothing game, and like it's one of them things where it's like it would only happen to the bees. You know what I mean? I think he's going to be your one to watch this year, or he's my one to watch if you want my one to watch. And then obviously Preston Toombs when he is with us.
Yeah,
definitely watch for him if any listeners are watching him and we're playing.
He's one of the young lads coming through, isn't he? And
yeah,
I wanted to mention as well. You played with Hallam a couple of years. He seems like he's improved quite a bit. Obviously, he's loyal to he played Buffalo last season. Obviously, got a boatload of points. But I think that's another a top player who knows where the net is. He can put the puck in the net.
And he's a very good centreman.
Yeah.
So again,
to have English British centreman.
And that ties into what you said earlier. Is like we need depth, right? He brings depth. Yeah, he's going to help us out. He's a good centerman. He's a good two-way player, and he's the kind of guy too that like he knows his role.
Yeah,
he knows he's not a 50-point scorer or 50-goal scorer, but he knows he can contribute and he'll do that job. And he shakes up a bit as well. He likes to mouth off a bit like all of us.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, especially anything to win the games.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I think we're very much on a rebuild.
Yeah.
I think, obviously losing Bracknell, I Shrink obviously hurt the bees because now they've lost that feeder program. You've obviously got the situation with Slough, which I have my own opinions on, but I don't want to get into. They're almost set up to failure, but they're around every year. It only speaks volumes about how good of a job Doug, Graham, Paul, and I think Rich is the other one that they do as a 4-man team.
And they're competitive every year, and that's the key thing, I think, for me.
Yeah, I made a point to John Neville, actually, because I still talk to John Neville quite a lot. I said, could you imagine if they had the financial backing and infrastructure that the likes of MK and Leeds have? Because, like I just said, is the bees are set up to fail every year, and they don't. So it only speaks volumes about what the directors can do with a hockey club. Yeah. Because if you're able to essentially stop a sinking ship sinking every year, what could you do if you had, the financial backing that Leeds and MK and, Swindon have, and, having a nice rink, and a fan base where you can bring in, over, I think we sell out at 700, right?
Yeah.
We've got Leeds and MK packing in 25 on a sellout, right?
Yeah, it's nuts, isn't it?
Right. So if we just had that in place, I reckon it would be a completely different story. Yeah. But unfortunately, it's not. And they've got to work with what they got, and they do a very good job of it. So
yeah, maybe
our time will come. Maybe it is this year, maybe it's not. But they've got the right idea in mind, and if you keep moving steps forward in the right direction, players will come.
Yeah.
I kind of maintain the same ethos with the bees as I did with Basingstoke. Is you look at Basingstoke over the years, you look at bees over the years, they very much retain the same core of players.
They do, yeah.
There's a reason for that, right? Like players
stick around.
Yeah, and that's because they like playing there, right? Because no one likes losing. No one likes finishing 8th place, right? So there's a reason why they go back each year, and it's because, you get treated so well. I'll give you an example of how good the bees are as an organization, and how just genuine they are and how human they are.
Yeah.
So my fiance Hillary, her nan passed away a few weeks ago, and it was very sudden. It was very tough, and she loved hockey, and she loved Hillary, and Hillary was very close with her nan, and she followed Basingstoke, and she followed the bees because she was very invested in my hockey, right?
Yeah.
And she was always commenting on their social medias, always saying like, go Liam, or Liam's the best player, just things like a nan would do.
Yeah.
When they found out they are going to get a custom bees jersey made in a frame with pictures of her and Hillary to be sent out to Canada. And like, I offered money for it, and he was like, don't be ridiculous, mate, it's what we do.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. So it's
just a little bit of class, which
when you're
wouldn't know about, and
for that kind of person, like, you're not going to leave, right? Unless there's a very good reason to leave.
Yeah.
Right. Like, to me, that speaks volumes about what it is being a player for the bees, because you know that no matter what, you're going to get looked after.
Yeah, and I think that's
sorry to hear that, mate. Sorry for your loss. Would have been completely okay.
Yeah.
But they've gone above and beyond to do that, right? And then just other things too. Like I remember, I needed new skates last year, and the day one I walked in, box was in my stall already.
Really?
Or like, hey guys, like my stick broke, I need a stick. Yeah, what flex power? Yeah, okay, be in your stall and end the practice. Like just everything's very seamless, streamlined. You always feel like taken care of. My helmet broke as well. There's another one. My helmet broke like the last 3 games of the year, and they got me a brand new one, and it was like the last 3 games of the year. They were like, "Well, you need a helmet, mate. You need to protect your head, right?" And it wasn't like a crappy one. It wasn't a cheap one either. Like it was like a top of the line Bauer React, right?
Oh,
So if they keep doing that, and I tell my story and other players hear this, right? They might think, well, like, that was really nice that like they did that for Liam when his fiance's nan died. That's the kind of team I would play for, right? If you keep that right frame of mind and right ethos, people will come, right? The old cliche: if you build it, they will come.
yeah.
I think if they had a better rink, that they had their own identity, and I think they would be a much bigger player in this league.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you say that, and I know we're a hockey podcast and we talk about what's on the ice. Well, most of what's on the ice, but I think off the ice is so key as well. And yeah, I think what we talked about today about the bees and stuff, I think it will open a lot of fans' ideas that it's not just what happens on the ice, it's off the ice as well.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, right, we're all human.
Yeah.
We're all just people. It's funny, right? Like, because I when you think about that, the you tend to hate each other is what you like to hate each other during the year.
Yeah.
But when you obviously hear stories like that, you kind of say, oh, maybe the bees fans aren't so bad, or maybe the bees aren't so bad after all. You know what I mean? It is funny how your perspective changes on people.
That's why me and my brother try to stay positive about everything, because at the end of the day, most fans, I think, would want the league to stay afloat, and it wouldn't be the same if the bees weren't part of that league. Or for example, it's not really been the same since Basingstoke have not been a part of the league. So it's important to have every team and that comes here. I think I've spoke to so many players about it. It's all about just keeping the league afloat.
No, exactly. Losing teams doesn't, take your perspective or take your support out of it, whoever you support. Losing a team doesn't help the league. We touched on that last time. I remember, when Basingstoke folded, and Nelly called me. He goes, "Well, that sucks for us because we're going to lose all that gate money."
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So like that financially affected Swindon. Same with the bees. The bees obviously need the gate money as much as they can get, and when Basingstoke come to town, or Swindon, because you've been there when Swindon, that whole end of the rink is full.
Yeah.
You need that because you need that money coming in. Losing teams. Who wants to watch 4 teams play each other at the same time 20 times a year? It just gets boring.
Yeah.
You need
exactly.
That. I think the league has to be careful though with where it's going, because I think we're getting to a point now where you're starting to see players leave because it's too much.
Yeah.
I think we need to, if we're going to keep growing, we need to set something where maybe a North and South conference.
Yeah.
And you could kind of keep that variety by doing, okay, everyone plays in their conference 4 times home and away, and you do maybe 1 or 2 cross conference home and away.
Yeah.
And that'll keep that variety because, I've got a new job now. It's a corporate office job. I work in sales now, and I'm looking at the schedule this year, and I'm looking at times I have to book off, and the days available to have off start to dwindle when you're looking at some of the tricks. You're like, oh, I'll book a Monday off here, I'll book a Monday off there.
Yeah.
And obviously you take holiday during your year as well, right? So like you've got to account for how much holiday you might want in the next summer, and so I think
it shows I know we've waffled on a bit, but it shows the dedication of a lot of the hockey players. Right, as you said, it's semi-professional. It's not professional like the elite league. And fair play to a lot of those bees players and players of the teams who do have full-time jobs and still commit to it. What is your message to the bees fans? I know we always end to that. We've spoken a lot about them, but what is your message to them going to next season?
Just believe in us, whatever happens. I know last year was frustrating for a lot of them, and they were very verbal about their frustrations, but just always remember that no matter how annoyed you are, imagine how we feel. We have to play the game and lose. You guys don't like watching us lose. Well, we don't like losing. We had to play the game. Imagine putting all that effort in and coming up with nothing. So just believe in us, because, we want to win, and Graham and Doug and Paul and Rick, they have the right ideas. Just keep supporting them, because they need your support to keep putting that product together.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Thanks very much for coming on, Liam.
No worries.
And we're playing. I think Swindon are playing bees on
Yeah,
that first
I'll
game
see
of the
you in a few
season.
weeks.
So
I will.
yeah, it'll be a good
Looking
battle.
forward
I'm
to it.
interested to see the import netty. It'll be good.
Yeah, for sure.
So, welcome back. Thank you very much to whoever we've interviewed. If we have interviewed someone, if not, you've come straight back to our preview for next season. And we'll start with the players who are outgoing, the players who are not returning. And we didn't actually mention this player, Vitali. We met his family on the last game. He actually scored on that last game as well, which I think, no, it was the game which secured him playoffs. And
Yeah,
that was a real good moment for him. I think he got man of the match as well. I think
yeah.
his dad, his sister missed the goal. She went to the toilet and then he scored.
I was standing next to his dad, and he was saying that his daughter was coming over. She was over in the UK, I think, anyway, and waiting all that time for her to come over, and they were cheering like mad for him. She nipped off to the important room, and he scored. But it was that was he scored some crucial goals there for him.
He did. And he might have not been one of the top imports in the league,
Mm.
but he did a role on that second line, which wasn't a depthy second line in terms of player quality on other teams. He did a role and he got a point per game. He got 41 points in 41 games, which I think helped them get to that playoff spot, especially being that third import behind Ballas and Gabai. And he didn't play on the same line as them really at all. He was literally the second line guy. So fair play to him. I'm not sure whether he's signed for a team yet, but hopefully he has a good rest of his
I
career.
think he's signed for a team in France.
Has he?
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
I've heard, yeah.
We see a lot of players go over to France from our league, so good luck to him. Griffin Priest, he has left as well to join Fife Flyers as the backup netminder. Obviously, he is Scottish. Pardon me. I think that makes sense. Him going back up. He obviously is a bit closer to home, and we'll see why as well. With another player they've brought in, Dan.
Yeah, I think he obviously this season he was really good, and I think he sort of needed that season because he was up in the elite league, obviously playing backup. I think he needed a season down here just to sort of get those people looking at him again.
Yeah.
I think now he's probably had a few eyes on him through the season. These elite league clubs obviously looking for that backup, and Fife have made a few changes throughout this off season as well. So I think they've always struggled having that goalie tandem, and I think bringing in Bryson Priest for them is really positive.
Yeah, it gives Shane Owen, who's their main goalie, a bit of a rest because I think he played quite a lot of games. And as you said, Griffin faced a lot of shots. I think Fife will be facing a lot of shots in the Elite League from some of those top teams. So you can put Griffin in. So yeah, I think it's a good move for him. And again, we wish him good luck in the Elite League. Dad, I actually think this is probably their biggest loss. Obviously, he had the injury last season. Harvey Stead, he will not be returning. He's gone to Streatham. That is a very big loss in the decor, isn't it?
Yeah, you saw what a difference he made when he was able to come back last season.
Yeah.
And he's been there a fair few years, hasn't he?
Yeah. He had that one season in Swindon, then he went back as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and he does a really good job for him. So yeah, he's obviously made that call. So yeah, it is some big shoes to fill. They've got a couple of big shoes to fill, haven't they? Really, to be fair,
they have another one. Who you know a bit, Dan, from, well, there's quite a few from the Basingstoke, but one is Doughty. He's left as well. I think he's joined a team in the league below as well.
He's gone to Streatham.
He's gone to Streatham as well, sorry. So Streatham taking a few Bees players, maybe to go against Slough, maybe. I'm joking. But yeah, that's another big loss. A big guy in front of the net who knows where the net is, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Well, they've still got a partnership with Streatham, so I don't know. We might see these players still play for Bees. You know what I mean?
They might actually.
They might just be playing. Yeah, they might just be because they may want to take a step back, and they're obviously going into the lower league for less games and stuff. But it doesn't mean that they won't come back up without injuries and stuff like that. Yeah, he's another guy that he's a power forward. It'll just work around the boards. He can't get knocked off the park. He's a nuisance in front of the net. Just put him in front of the net on a power play. He'll tip it. He'll clear out everything in the crease. And it's just from what he did from Basingstoke, and he just carried it over to Bees. Yeah. But yeah, he's a guy that is such a big part of that offensive structure for the Bees because not many guys like to do that. Not many guys like to go into the boards and work around the corners and stuff like that. So yeah, he's going to be a big loss for the Bees.
Yeah. Obviously, we had Landsbergs and Mackenzie who played for him during the season. They're not going to be there next season. And the final one who has been quite a big guy, depthy guy for the Bees. He's been quite loyal for them. Is Webb, and he's not going to be at the Bees next season. And he's not your most flashy guy. He's not going to put up loads of points, Dad. But every time he went out on the ice, he worked his ass off. He had his cage. He obviously could have taken it off. He had his cage, but he still worked his ass off. And yeah, I think that's another player who Bees will be like, thank you very much for the hard work you've put in the last couple seasons.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. Reliable, and when you've got the local boys and the talent that isn't coming back, it does leave a hole. So yeah, they've got a few shoes to fill there, haven't they?
Yeah.
We've also you also got Baird as well. Baird's gone to Streatham.
Yeah.
That's another defensive piece that's gone. I think is Danny Rose
his brother
retired?
will come back. Joe will come back for a game. We know he will.
Oh yeah, 100%. He'll play anyway. He'll play in goal. I think Danny Rose, he retired as well.
No. Dan Rose
or is he resigned?
We'll go on to him in a minute.
No, okay. I thought I saw him retire. Maybe I was getting him mixed up with Webb. But yeah, Baird is another one. He's another guy on the D that will he's got quite a good pass, to be fair. Passes the puck up really well.
Yeah.
Sometimes he gets a few penalty problems, but we won't talk about that. That's just in the Baird family, I think.
You are right. It will be a bit of a loss.
But it's just another defenseman gone, It's just they need to replace these defensemen, and it's hard to find in this league because obviously defenseman is a dying position.
Yeah, it is. Have we missed anyone else for leaving?
You did mention Bradley, didn't you?
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to say. I know he talked about it before he's come Swindon, but yeah, they won't have Bradley next season. But again, he's been quite a good servant for the Bees. He scored a boatload of points for him as well. But that will be a loss because he was on their power play as well. So that is quite a few points missed with him. Let's go into the players they've signed then, because they've got quite a few new boys on the block. But we'll go through the ones they've re-signed. And Brett Shepherd, he's coming back as a backup goalkeeper. I think he might get a few more games this season, possibly, because we saw how burnt out Prescott at the end of last season. So maybe he might come in for a few games. We'll have to see because of the new guy we'll talk about. But Josh Kelly, I think this is a huge one. He had a big injury last season, didn't he, Dan? Which took him out for the majority of the season. It's like a new signing with Josh Kelly, isn't it, for the Bees?
Yeah, he had a really tough injury. He suffered with concussion. He suffered it in the Basingstoke season as well.
Yeah.
So he missed out half of that season, came back to Bees, and then I think he obviously missed it again. I'm really hoping he can stay fit this season because he is a really good D-man, and he's grown so much as well since he first signed in Basingstoke.
Yeah.
And he'll be a really key piece to that D-core, and he'll be looking to get into that top four D spot, 100%. And I'm sure he deserves the role. He's played so well, and just fingers crossed he can stay fit for the season and really make his mark on that D-core.
It's a bummer, isn't it, Dad? We've seen quite a few players with the concussion injury, some good little players. Selby's one of them. I know Selby had quite a few fights, but he did get his concussion injury. Ollie Stone's one who we know quite well. Who I'm gutted for him that he's had these. I'm glad he's playing for the Wildcats too this season, and hopefully it can be sorted. But there's just nothing you can do if there's a reoccurring concussion, is there?
No, you can't. You just got, as you say, you just hope that he has a really good start to the season. And actually, I'm sure it's something that plays on people's minds. But as we've seen with the sport, it's getting better and better and better, more competitive, and you can't go in, just going in 50% in some of those tussles on the board. You've got to go 100%. So, fair play to him. He's going to give it another crack. But as you say, he's going to be crucial in their D-core moving forward. So best of luck.
I think he'll definitely have a top four role. Maybe coming in for Baird. Or a Stead, possibly. So Oliver Nags, he's obviously back, and I don't blame him one bit. He's going to get 54 games out of 54, touch wood, if he doesn't get an injury, and he's just going to improve even more. So I'm looking forward to watching him for another season. I'm sure you are as well, Dan. And
Always.
Stuart Mogg is back as well. And was he the captain last season?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he should be the captain going into next season as well. And we know Stuart Mogg. He's a great guy. So
He's an
welcome.
unreal D-man, by the way.
Yes, he goes under the radar. I know we use that word so much, but he
Yeah.
does go under the radar.
He puts it all on the ice. He always plays for the badge, and it's still mental to think that he started off as a forward in Basingstoke and turned into a D-man.
Yeah. To be fair, we've seen quite a few forwards switch to that D-man, especially recently as well. Bebris being one of them who we have that debate with. But this is a B special, and we'll move on to their forwards. Vanya's back, of course he is. Antonov, he wouldn't go anywhere else, would he, Dan? He's back at the Bees, and I think he can actually score a lot more points than he did last season. I know he's got other work on his mind as well. So hockey's probably not his main priority, but I think he's definitely got another 15, 20 points in him next season.
Yeah, 100%. He's another guy that's going to be really big, and he's definitely going to get potentially a role on that top line.
Yeah.
Because I think we saw him on the top line a bit last season, but maybe because of the depth, they might need to sort of switch it around a bit from last year. I think potentially we might see Antonov also play for Streatham as well. So both teams get a bit of Antonov. Can't be complaining about that.
Yeah, obviously he did play for him for a bit, didn't he?
Yeah, but yeah, he's an unreal player. He's always been a great player in this league, and he's always so good, so talented on the puck. He's just got the IQ. He's just everything about him is perfect for hockey.
Yeah. Balaz is back, obviously, Dad. He's probably going to stay there for another, however long he can play. But they were relied on a lot last season with points. With the defense from other teams getting better and a couple import netminders as well, I don't think the Bees can rely on them as much this season as they did last season. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Obviously, they're going to score points, but last season they were relied on so much, weren't they?
Yeah, and probably again this season there's going to be an element of reliance on them. But I think it's going to go for most players. I think most forwards with an improved D across the league in the majority of teams, and possibly an improvement in netminders. Your controversial comment about 100-point scorers during the league, it's going to be an interesting challenge. But, without a doubt, again, as you go into the league, you're going to be looking at Kabay and Ballas and going, they're the two that we've got to shut down at the moment. And we know what a fast start they had. They had a fast start last season. You want to stop them having a fast start again.
Teams would have tried to do that last season, but they still managed to do it, Dan. It's not like it's not new that they're the two main guys on the team, is it? So they would have tried to stop him, but they still got those points. So they're going to have to do a lot of carrying though this season as well with some of the players that have left. Obviously, Adam Rossbottom has re-signed. We know him; he's a grinder. And hopefully he'll be able to play a few more games this season as well. And then we've got Dan Rose, Dad. Obviously, you've spoke to his dad as well. He's back. He played on that second line center role. And he might not be the most flashy, big point scorer like some of the players in this league, but he puts everything into his shifts and he makes life a bit easier for those wingers around him.
Yeah, it does. And I think it also just reminds us as we go through the teams, I only briefly chatted to his dad, and it's great because you just get a little insight into how people got into the game, and also just the hard graft it is to maintain playing, season after season after season, and the work that's put in, and also the impact it has on the family as well as their training and all the time that's spent. So, another local person who's committed themselves to the Bees for many, many years, and is a really good servant, and actually sometimes just quietly gets on with it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah,
as a sentiment there as well. So yeah, it's good to have some stability back in the line for him. Definitely.
Yeah. If he didn't come, their centre depth is looking a bit thin in terms of centres who you can trust. And then the final two, Dan, they can play forward or D, and we know them quite well. So Liam Morris and Will Stead. We might see them back and forth a bit this season after losing some D-men, but then they also will need to cover some of them forward. So it's unsure whether they're going to play forward or D. as we saw with Will Stead, he played a majority of defence, not last season, but the season before. But this last season, he played a lot in forward. So I wouldn't be surprised maybe if he goes back to D a bit.
Yeah, I think last season we saw, definitely near the end of the season, we saw a big offensive output from Will Stead.
Yeah.
Definitely, like, I think he was on the third line.
He was
but
about
he was
40
still,
points. It's the season before last, yeah.
yeah, he was getting some important goals, even like close to the playoffs and stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously we know Morris will play anywhere on the ice. As long as he's always said, as long as he's playing, he doesn't care where he plays. And I think he is. I think we will see him more on D this season. I think we'll see Will Stead take that forward position more, and I think Morris, obviously, I think he prefers being a forward, but at the same time, him in defence is so important because of his speed. He
Yeah.
can shut down those fast skaters, and especially in the small ice pads as well. And the big ice pads, he can shut down the space. He's a gritty D man. Don't mind going into the boards.
Rat.
And he is a rat, but he's very good at it. And he's a great guy off the ice as well.
Yeah, he is.
But yeah, I think we'll see him more in D and I think we'll see him more improved Liam Morris in D this season as well.
He might be the guy we interview actually, because I know he said that he'd come back on whenever, so he could be the guy who's on this interview for this video. But yeah, be important for them next season to rack up a few more points as well. I think they'll be looking for to help towards it. Let's get into the new boys then, and we'll start with the hot topic, and that is the import netminder. Bees are one of 3 teams to go with the import netty, and his name is Max Wright. He's 25 years old, 6 foot. And he's played in the U Sports, and he's also played in the OJHL Juniors League. But Dan, in the U Sports League, he had an 887 save percentage. He then got a 920, which is very, very good. And then he got an 891. So he's had an up and down U Sports. I think he'll be an improvement on Priest because of he's that Canadian goalie who's played in those top leagues or the U Sports League, and we know a lot of players have come from that and done very well. So, but it's a bit of a question mark again, isn't it? Because we've never seen it really.
Yeah, it's so hard to sort of say anything about these players because like we're just going from a signing video, and obviously they're not going to show him letting in
prospects
goals.
page as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So it is so hard to see until you see him in that first game, and even then, he's going to take a bit of time to get settled into the league. Like it's going to be so different for him. Especially, I think Bizzy's obviously played in Canada for his whole career, so this is the first time he's going to be playing in England. But yeah, I think it had to be done for the Bees. I think going for the import netminder sort of was a go-to. It was either going to be a D-man or a goalie, and I think he will. I think he will win Bees some games this season. I think he's going to have to. I think there will be times in the season where they are going to rely on him. And the thing is, they spend the big money for the big import goalies, and they've got to show up. So they're going to be expecting him to show up, and in them big games in MK and stuff, they're going to be expecting him to be making them big saves and keeping them in the game.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, Dad. Obviously, we won't know until we see him, but in the U Sports leagues, they only play from September up to February, and in that time period, they get a lot more rest. He only played 21 games in that final season. This is a 54 league game. You get your preseason games, and you've also got possible playoff and cup games as well. He's going to come into a lot more intense. In the U Sports League as well, it's a lot more defensive. It's a more defensive league. There's less points being scored in that league. He's going to come into this Bees team and he's going to be facing a boatload of shots. Do you think that's going to be a bit of a shock for him? Or as Dan said, it will just take a bit of time for him to settle and then we might see the class of him playing in that Canadian league?
Yeah, I think he will have come over with his eyes open. You know, there's plenty of in the same way that we will check him out and try and find video footage of him. He will have seen video footage of the Bees. So you know, I mean, he's 25, which is good. Slightly older than last year's Price.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
So you know, he's got to command that goal. I mean, the other interesting fact is again, you know, he's going to be playing on a variety of rinks, but and quality of rinks. But I think again, they're going to want to make. He'll want to make the Bees home games a fortress. And he'll want to make sure he uses all 6 foot of himself to cover that net. Definitely going to be one to watch. And I think he's going to be fundamental in shaping up their decor, really.
Yeah. Again, we can't say too much until we see him. That's the main thing about it, and we'll see if with all these shots that he's going to be facing, whether he can handle it, especially from the likes of Kieran Brown and Malazinski and all of those big boys. Let's move on to their D then. And they've signed a couple players, Dan. You're going to have to help me on this one because I know you know a couple of them well. The first one is Titan Cathcart. He's only 20 years old. Sorry, there's a fly or a moth flying around my face, and it is very frustrating. He's 20 years old, defenseman, and he's played with the Slough Jets a lot this season. He played with the Bees a bit last season. What can we expect from him?
Yeah, he's had that link with the Bees, I think, for the past 2 or 3 seasons.
Yeah,
he's always sort of been up and down. He's probably been training with them and stuff, etc. But I think they didn't really see the right time for him to come up. I think every time he sort of came into the team, he never really got that ice time. This season, obviously, these spots have opened up, and I think obviously bringing in Tate as well, because Tate, I think he trained with Bison when obviously Bison were playing, so Tate's obviously seen him, and he's obviously seen the D spots opened up, and he's like, right, this is your chance, like this is your season to go for it, and show us like what you've got. And I think he's going to be as overwhelmed as anyone to obviously take that opportunity. And I think that's only going to be a good thing for Bees, because what's better than a passionate player wanting to prove a point to his team?
Yeah.
And the spot's opened up, so it's all his to take now.
It's kind of, I think it's good, Dad. He's kind of been nurtured into the NIHL. He played 15 games 2 seasons ago and then 13 games last season. So he's kind of been slowly introduced to the NIHL. He's played obviously a season with the Slough Jets in the league below. And as Dan said, now the spots are open for him. He's 20 years old. I can imagine he's got a bit bigger, a bit stronger. This is his chance now, isn't it, to try and prove he's an NIHL player?
Yeah, and he'll be hungry for it as well. Hungry to prove himself and get stuck in. Again, it's a long season. You've got to pace yourself a little bit, albeit you can't go in 50% in hits and all that kind of stuff. But, opportunity. Take it with both hands. And I think, again, really important role he's got for the Bees this season.
Yeah. Dan, a bit of an opposite guy. 26-year-old, 6'2". He loves a little scrap. He's very physical. You've seen him obviously at Basingstoke for a season. He was captain at the Oxford City Stars last season. The Berkshire Bees have signed Marcus Mitchell, and it's an interesting one, isn't it? I think the physicality they've lost in Baird, I think that could be his like-for-like replacement. He's a bit bigger than Baird, but they played together at Basingstoke, didn't they, Baird and Mitchell? And I think he could bring a lot of physicality round to protect Max Wright in goal.
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be a fan favourite. He loves getting the crowd behind him. And obviously with that height as well, he's got that extended reach. He's really good with his stick. I've noticed for Basingstoke, he was really good at cutting out those passes, using his body really well. And I'm sure having that season away, obviously in Oxford, I know they didn't have the best of seasons, but I'm sure he would have learned stuff from that. And I think having that season in Basingstoke really helped him out as well, having that pretty much full season in the National League. Yeah. So he knows sort of levels now. He's been playing for Oxford. He's played for Basingstoke, so he knows now. And I think this season you're going to see an improved Mitchell from both of the past seasons he's had. And he's gonna, especially in those small rinks, he's gonna really use his body well. He's gonna be a gritty guy along the boards. He's gonna get under people's skin. Obviously, not afraid to drop the glove, stand up for his team, and he's just gonna learn a lot. And especially with the goalie as well, I'm sure the goalie's gonna be telling his defense what he wants. He's obviously played with probably unreal D-men throughout his career, so he's gonna be telling his D-men what he wants. And I'm sure it's going to be a really good season for Marcus Mitchell, I think.
Yeah, he's going to be relied on a lot, I think, penalty killing as well. Dad, another little young lad, 18-year-old. He's got a 2-way with the Bees and Streatham. And I want to talk about the Streatham link because obviously Bees play in Slough's rink and they haven't got the two-way with Slough, but Streatham have a very good team, and they've got some good little young players. He played 24 games for Streatham last season. No, sorry. Is the Streatham, they're called Streatham Redhawks, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he played 24 games for the Streatham Redhawks last season. Got 8 points as a D-man. He's only 18. I think it's quite key having that two-way with Streatham because it will give them a bit of depth if they need a couple guys to come up from Streatham. Like Dan mentioned, if they do need Brendan Baird or Doughty for a game, or Stead, they can bring Stead back. They can just transfer him over to the Bees for a game or two.
Just remind me of the lad's name.
Preston Toombs.
Oh, sorry, Preston Toombs. Yeah. Yeah, you spoken on. You boys have spoken a lot about development opportunities.
Yeah.
And two ways with the elite league, and this is another point in case about development of players and opportunities. So yeah, I think again it is a big step up, but I think it's a really crucial link. I mean, Streatham was successful last season, weren't they? So success is going to breed success. So I think they'd be hungry to if they can see that you can start working hard in Streatham and achieving, and there's opportunities to move forward, then I think that only strengthens the relationship with them. I'm sure, it'd be nice to give Slough a little game in there as well, if you're part of Streatham and Bees. But yeah, it's a good little matchup to develop players.
This Flyers, it's absolutely doing my nutting. But that's the decor. They've obviously got some strength in the defence, and we know that Morris and Wilstead can cover there if they need to. And they haven't actually signed too many forwards. They have got a few depthy guys, I'd say. And the first one, Dan, is another Cathcart. It is the brother, and he's just 18 years old, and he's also on a two-way. We talk about these two-way with Streatham. He's on a two-way with Streatham. He actually played for the Slough Jets last season, so he's made the switch to Streatham so he can have that link with the Bees. And again, we're just echoing what we've said, aren't we? It's just another little opportunity for them.
Yeah, I'm really glad he's actually signed with the Bees. He played obviously quite a few games for Basingstoke, and obviously again being that depthy piece that we needed. But yeah, again, he's going to have a really good season, I think, especially having that link with Streatham. He can switch between both levels, so he can gain his confidence in one, show it off in the other, and stuff like that. He's another guy. He'll put his all into the game. He's only young. He'll go into the board battles. Considering he's a youngster, you don't normally see that. He's got really good hands, a really good shot. He's really clever with the puck. But yeah, he's a really good signing for Bees, and I think if it all works out for him, I think it could be a very successful season for him as well.
Yeah, and then another guy is Adam Erskine. Again, he played for Slough last year. He's 6'3", 19 years old, another young lad. He's also playing for Streatham and the Bees as well. So plenty of options between the two, and you can see why they've done that partnership. And I'm sure Goodbye had that on his radar when the season started to get that partnership through. And then the final one, Dan, I'm going to come to you again. It is your boy, Hallam Wilson. Obviously, played at the Buffalo last season. Obviously, he's played for Bison his whole career. And he has signed with the Bees. And we know that he can play on the NIHL level, and I think that is a strong signing for the Bees for him to come in, because he actually can score some points in this level. So Goodbye will probably be looking to put him on a top 6 role, actually.
Yeah, 100%. He's really proved himself in this league, especially obviously through the hard times of Basingstoke and stuff like that. He's shown that he obviously can put the points up. He will obviously leave everything on the ice as well. He's another guy like that. A perfect match for Bees, I think. He obviously had that really successful season, I know, for the Buffalo, won the playoffs, obviously got a load of points, which he should have, really.
75.
But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him a bit on the top line, maybe just switching between the top and the second line. I think he's played with Ballas, I think, in Basingstoke. He played a few games with him, so he's going to have that connection with him as well. But yeah, he's just going to be a guy that fits straight in, I think. I think he's not really going to take any introduction to him. No, yeah, that's what I mean. And he's going to fit straight into that team. And I think he's going to be a really important piece for them.
Yeah, it's definitely, I'd say 20 to 30 points possibly added to that roster with that signing. That was their most recent full signing. They did sign a young goalie who's going to be on a two-way as well, Harry Thomas. Expectations for the Bees then this season. I think, Dad, I'll go with you first. Actually, what's your expectations for the Bees? I think it's going to be similar to last season, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, again, we looked at spoken a lot about the importance of the two up front, Ballas and Dubai, the importance of their import netminder and the massive influence that he may have on the D for them. But there's a lot of youngsters, a lot of development. We mentioned a lot of two ways with Streatham, a lot of potential. I just wonder whether it's just going to be a tough old gig again.
Bit early, possibly, for all of them.
Yeah, possibly. I think it's going to be. I think a focus on their own rink. I mean, I'm not saying you don't focus on the away games at all, but yeah. I think there's going to be a real focus on trying to get the points in the bag on their home rink. But yeah, I mean, they've got some opportunities for a lot of players. And they're reliant on their experienced boys to really try and bring them through, right from the netminder through to mentioned Danny Rhodes, mentioned Kabay and Ballas up front and such like. So I think could be a tough one, but I think, they're going to surprise you in a few games.
Oh, Dan, we know how difficult it is for some teams to play on their rink. They obviously got playoffs last season. Can they do it again? Do you think their expectations is going to be to do that again?
I think they're definitely going to be expecting to do it. They're going to be wanting to push for that playoff spot again. They love playing against all odds. To be fair, they love it. Yeah. I think they are going to struggle. I think they need to sign a big D man.
Yeah, there's still time for them.
Yeah, they need a big D man sign. I think because I think they will struggle with that defensive core that they've got at the minute. A positive for the season, I think, will be they've got a lot of young guys, like we've said, and I think this is going to be a really big season for them to grow. I think they've got a really good setup with the two ways that they've got, and there'll be a really big time to prove themselves in the National League, a very competitive one as well.
Yeah.
The goalie will be a big key part of it. I think it all depends on how he settles in and how he does, depend on how they do, because he is. Obviously, a lot of eyes are going to be on him because all the import goalies, there will be eyes on them because there's a reason why they've gone for them, and they're going to be expecting them to be winning them games, like I've said. But I think they are going to struggle. I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't see them in playoffs, but again, with Bees, you never know.
Yeah, we said that last season. I do think they've lost quite a few of those more experienced players, and I think it's brilliant that they've brought in a lot of these guys for the two ways. I think it's kind of a little project as well. I don't think Gabai's going to be moving on very soon. We don't know. I'm just guessing, but he seems comfortable in his coaching role, and if these guys can develop with that two way, then they've got the advantage, Bees, of keeping those guys because they put the trust in them at the start. So it's kind of a little process for the Bees, a little project. But I'm sure all of their expectations is to try and get playoffs again. They did it last season, so why can't they this season? And obviously they're going to have to try and find a few more points, which isn't Ballas and Gabai. But at the other end, Gabai's obviously gone with that import netty to try and save them some games in that as well. So I agree with you, Dad. I think they're going to have to try and make their home rink a fortress. As silly as it sounds, I do think they are going to try and push for that top four in the cup for those first 10 games. You don't know what could happen in them first 10 games. You've got 5 home games in your own rink to try and win, and then just sneak a couple away ones, and you might be in that top 4 spot. I don't know if they will do that, but you just don't know. It's only 10 games now, so I'm sure their expectations is to try and make playoffs again, and again cause some upset for teams and try and develop a lot of players.
And I think they want to try and do that, and I think another reason they want to try and do that is to try and increase the numbers that are coming through the door. It's not the biggest of rinks. They've not got the most seats. When you look at the rinks around the league. So I think, again, it's important, isn't it, for them? I don't know what their budget is. They're not one of the bigger clubs, are they? So, they've got to work with what they can. But again, it's important if they can start doing a little bit of magic on the ice at home, then hopefully they will, it will increase the number of people coming through the door, which will help them. as a club moving forward. So yeah, going to be tough, but they'll pull a few rabbits out of hats at times.
And it's safe to say if Swindon haven't got a game on a Sunday, I'm sure we'll take a trip down again to Slough and give them a couple ticket sales and hopefully watch Ballas and Goodbye masterclasses again. So nah, it'll be good. Ones to watch then. We'll finish with our ones to watch each from the Bees. And Dad, you've kind of given yours away a bit throughout speaking, but who's your ones to watch for this season?
Mine is definitely their netty, their import netty. I think everything that we've said on the podcast, I think how quickly he can settle, the impact he has on the team, the confidence that he will give the team, and as you said, possibly bossing around the D and using his experience that he's got across the sea to help develop some of the D and put a little bit of a fortress in front of him. Again, difficult, not seen too much of him, but that's my one to watch.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Dan, who's your ones to watch for next season?
I'm going to go with the D-man, Ollie Nags.
Ooh.
I've obviously praised him so much, obviously all through last season as well. Yeah. But this season is definitely a different one. I think this season he's gained that trust now, and he's going to be another guy that's going to be a big part of that decor. And he's still so young, but I think he's 100% up for it. And he's going to be another big part, and it's going to be a very, very, very good season for him. And I'm sure he's going to take it in his steps. And it might take a bit of time, but who knows? By the looks of it, last season he didn't look phased at all. Any scenario he was in, he looked calm, and that's what you want from a D-man. You don't want a person rushing around and getting nervous and stuff like that. He was just calm, collected, passed the puck up, held it at the right times. But yeah, this season I'm definitely gonna be watching Ollie Nags.
He's gonna make mistakes, like that is common. But I think he, as you said, he a bit like Jamie Smith. They just play the game. They don't panic. They don't worry on the puck. He just plays the game. He knows his strengths. And Goodbye trusts him clearly. My ones to watch. I'm gonna go Goodbye. No, I'm joking. I'm not. I'm not going Goodbye. I got called out for being boring for the whole one with Sobchak. I'm gonna go with Hallam Wilson actually. After losing a couple point scorers in Doughty, I do think Hallam Wilson's got. Let's flip him off. Sorry, has got to come in and he's got to be a point scorer and make up for quite a few points and help Ballas and Goodbye and Antonov. Because they are going to have to. You have to. I know defense first, and they've got that with the goalie, and they're hoping that he can keep the scores low. But then you've got to have that secondary scoring behind Ballas and Goodbye. And I think Wilson, whether he plays top line, second line, he'll be quite important for that. So Hallam Wilson, I'm going with him. Dan, I thought you were actually going to go with Hallam Wilson, obviously with him being a Basingstoke boy, but no, Ollie Nags is a really good one as well. That is the Bees special then. We hope you've enjoyed the Bees special. Dad, thanks for joining us again.
That's all right. I think I was going to say, I think it's the first time that you've actually mentioned the coach of the Bees correctly. It's normally Gabadge, isn't it?
But we've called him Gabadge.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
So well played. It's only taken 2 seasons. Well done.
Yeah, it's only taken 2 seasons of him being. Actually, he's been here for 3 seasons, I think. So he's a fantastic coach, a fantastic player. And see if he can hit 100 points this season. Let us know in the comments if you've made it to the end and who your ones to watch is from the Bees. Let us know if you agree or disagree with the stuff we said. Follow our socials at Macca's Talk Hockey on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we'll see you next. We'll see you in the next team special. We don't know who it will be, but we'll see you in the next one. Peace.